Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Inside Battlefield. My name is Tom, community manager here at DICE, and today we're back with another preview of quality of life changes coming during Season 5. With today's focus being on the vehicle loadout rework, and we're doing things a little bit differently today. We couldn't get the full team in the room at the same time, so I'll start the discussion first with Ali, and then later I'll be joined by Ross and Jim. So Ali, you're here with me right now.
Yeah.
So how's it going?
It's good. Living the dream as always. How are you?
Same. Excited for another podcast episode, and I think what we're doing at Vehicles in Season 5 is pretty exciting as well. So I've been looking forward to talk about that for quite a while, and I think the team has as well. So Ali, before we dive into it, can you first give a quick intro about yourself, what you do at DICE?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a producer in the core gameplay team. And the core gameplay team basically focuses on weapons, vehicles, specialists, basically all type of hardware in the game.
Okay, so everything you actually play with.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. So welcome.
Thank
and
you.
Then for the vehicle loadout rework, can you maybe give us a quick recap of what we're doing?
Yeah, for sure. So we've seen how the vehicle gameplay has evolved during the past seasons. And as a result, we targeted a couple of changes we're introducing in Season 5. First off, which is kind of interrelated to the loadout changes, is the prevalence of explosive vehicle equipment. While we do think that the explosives have their place on the battlefield and gameplay overall, we don't think they should be a strategic choice and not a default choice or like available option for all vehicles. Not only because their prevalence provides an unforgiving experience to infantry gameplay, but also because it undermines picking the vehicles that meet the current needs of your team and squad. So we feel that the changes to the vehicle categorization while leaving their loadouts unchanged has resulted in the removal of clearly defined combat roles. Transport vehicles are a good example where they're meant to swiftly carry you and your squad towards like an objective, and while they still have the weaponry available to defend during that journey, they are not meant for direct like offensive purposes. So that means similar to the return of the class system that we released back in January. We're restructuring the vehicle loadouts to ensure the combat roles are, again, like clearly defined and their role on the battlefield is clearer.
So Ali, thank you. I think that was a good overview of what we're doing with the loadout changes, but can you give some examples of what that actually means?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the restructuring of loadouts will affect all vehicles, and just a point on that, like with this overall, we're also looking to improve the overall balance when it comes to our vehicle offering. It means that we'll both remove as well add weapons to each available loadout. So for instance, explosives will no longer be an option for all vehicles, but overall you find more choice through a larger selection of weapons available to you.
So I think another important item for the team as well was that we still wanted to ensure you have a lot of choice for your vehicle loadouts.
Yeah, exactly.
So I believe we ended up adding more weapons than we removed. Is that correct?
Correct.
But for explosives specifically, they'll still be available on some vehicles because that's their role. But can you give us an example where we completely removed the explosives?
Yeah, I mean, we looked at the pick rates, of course, where we saw the LATV being the highest pick rate of all our transport vehicles. So there we decided to remove it because we really believe in terms of balancing, we think it will be beneficial for the overall experience. Because
it was supposed to be a transport vehicle, but we saw that people were just, cruising around at high speed, blowing up stuff.
Yeah.
That was not really, it was just supposed to carry you across the battlefield.
Yeah.
Great. Is there any other changes you want to mention?
Yeah, I think those are the biggest changes for Season 5. And the team has worked really, really hard to try to address the feedback we've seen from the community.
Yep.
And I think Ross and Jim will cover it in a bit more detail. But before we give them the word, I also want to mention we've done a couple of quality of life additions, such as adding thermal view to vehicle equipment, decoupling aim from turning option, as well as jet gameplay improvements. So exciting stuff.
Yeah, so there is plenty of stuff coming. So, Ali, thank you for being here with me today. We couldn't all be in the same room together on the same day, so maybe next time. But we'll just pass it over to Jim and Ross now, and then we'll go talk in more detail about the changes.
All right.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
So, Jim, Ross, straight over to you. Welcome. So for folks listening who don't know you, could you please introduce yourselves and what you do at DICE? So, Jim, let's start with you.
My name is Jim. I am working as a vehicle designer at the moment.
Awesome. And Ross?
Hello, I'm Ross. I'm a design director on the live service. That's pretty much it.
Cool. So, both of you work in design.
Yeah.
Interesting. So let's talk some design then for vehicles. Before we go into today's subject about the vehicle loadout rework coming during season 5, I thought we would start with a little bit of a recap of where we feel we are now with season 4 in terms of vehicle gameplay. So, Ross, do you want to start off there?
Yeah. So I guess transport helis are the kind of big topic, right? Everyone's talking about them. So we've made some changes. I think they're a good first step. It seems to be having an impact on numbers, at least. So we just need to keep watching it. We want to make sure that we're doing the right things, and we've kind of taken gradual processes to get to where we think they need to be. Yep. So yeah, it's. I think they're looking better. And
the change we made was in update 4.2.
Yeah.
So the most recent update, and they now take more damage from all projectiles, right?
Yeah. So I think with the transport helis, it's a tricky one. When you have that many seats in a vehicle, your min and max are just so broad.
Yep.
So you're kind of trying to balance around a lot of different potential scenarios, and we need to get it right. If you push too far one way, they become useless. We push too far the other way, and I think we kind of did. Then we get, we get the air dominance, which is not what we wanted.
So we had a lot of feedback from players about it. So we made some changes there already. We will continue to review and see if more changes are necessary. But we've got a lot of stuff coming up as well in season 5. And Jim, what are your thoughts about where we are now with vehicle gameplay in season 4 and why we are making the changes that we do in season 5?
I think we have already done some good changes with the categories being added and moved around a bit, but there's still the issue of where you couldn't take on the helis with your categories. So I think that's a good change we're making now as well.
So I think the recategorization of vehicles was it during season 3? I think it was quite a while ago.
Yeah,
it was around then.
Yeah, but we've since learned what we've seen ourselves from just monitoring gameplay, but also from player feedback, is that a lot of vehicles go outside of their intended roles.
Yeah.
And I don't know. One of you can probably give me a good example of the, maybe it is the transport helicopter, like you just mentioned, Ross.
Yeah, I think that there's a big question over whether we should have called it a transport heli in the first place, and I think that's something we still talk about. But I think the LATV is a really good example. I think when we launched, we were trying to be as broad as we could. We wanted to try and get players together to have a really interesting varied experience. And I think looking at some of the other games, sometimes our roles on vehicles were too narrow. And I think we were trying to kind of counter that. And I think we probably pushed it a bit too far. So the changes that we're making now are to kind of bring back more of a sense of role. And that's going to have caveats, right? You're going to encounter things that maybe you're not going to be equipped to deal with. But I think overall that's better for the game and the experience. So it'll be exciting to see how everyone feels about it.
Yeah. So I think the thing we learned is that maybe we gave too much freedom with the vehicles, and what we're trying to do here is give them like you mentioned, a clear intended role. Because if too much freedom leads to a lot of chaos, but not always the fun kind of chaos for players. I think is that a right way to put it?
Yeah, it makes everything more readable when the role is clear, and I think that extends through soldiers into vehicles now. And I think it was generally less of an issue with vehicles because like they were more restricted, and the interaction towards them, as a soldier was more clear, like blow them up. But I think, if you look at the LATV, some of the changes that we've made there are to pull it back. It's a transport vehicle. That's its role. That's what it should be doing. And its ability to shred through soldiers, we needed to pull that back a bit. Like it was causing a lot of the problems that we have with explosion spam, and pulling those features out of that vehicle is ultimately going to be better for everybody.
Yeah. And Jim, another thing you mentioned when we chatted the other day is that something we also noticed that a lot of players right now just pick the vehicles they think look cool, but we brought the return to the class system in January where, you now have an engineer to take down vehicles, but we expect the same from vehicles where, hey, you see a lot of helicopters, you would need to take this vehicle to take down those helis, but that's not what we really see happening. So we want to give more focus there as well.
So I think a big change is actually the Wildcat and what do we call it? The Ram being in the same category, because most players just pick the Ram, even if there is a helicopter gunship flying around, they still just want to shoot people on the ground.
Yep.
So
I mean,
it's gonna help.
Yeah, it's fun, but I guess so. We're trying to give more purpose to players and also make it easier for them to identify this is probably the right vehicle I should take now based on what I'm seeing happening around me.
Yeah, from what we know, there's always all vehicles are always taken, right?
Yeah.
So that there's going to be a Wildcat in the level now, that it has its own category. So the gunships won't have free reign like they've had before.
The worst thing in the world as well is when you know that you want that vehicle, like you've identified there's a gunship, it's flying around, it's destroying everything. Okay, I'll go get it. Oh, somebody else is driving around in something that for you is irrelevant at that point in time. Yeah. So it should help. Okay.
And overall balance of vehicles as we close out season 4, how do you feel about that?
I think the big issue was the transport helis. So I think we'll just see how it goes, and again, I think the first changes that we made were to pull it back in terms of its overall firepower. Next step was to pull it back in terms of its survivability. So let's see how that goes now, and then we can assess later. But in general, I think once we get these changes out in terms of roles, I think then we can, again, assess the balance of those roles. Yep. Are they too strong? Are they too weak at their role? But I think that's the key thing. It's like it'll make it easier for us to balance in the future because we're matching role to role and outcome to role. So, yeah.
Okay. Jim, anything you want to add on balance?
For the helicopters, I mean, we're adding weapons to vehicles to deal with helicopters, like the LATV, for example, will get the AA gun, and the Wildcat will get a new, even stronger AA gun. So, I mean, we can't do
helicopters beware.
Yeah, we can't do too much to the actual helicopter before we see how it plays out.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, so we can't make all the changes at the same time, because if you balance this vehicle, then it will have an impact on that other vehicle. So we kind of need to take it one step at a time to see how that plays out, because we don't want to immediately reshuffle the entire meta. However, we are making some big changes in season 5. Like, so let's go there now. So that was an overview of where we feel we are in season 4, and then for season 5, we are doing a full reshuffle of the vehicle loadout. Loadouts, which you've just mentioned some examples of already. So could one of you give me like a summary of what our intent is for that full reshuffle during season 5?
You want me? Yeah. Well,
Yes, we want you.
the general intent is just to remove as many explosion-based weapons as possible, especially from the transport vehicles. So the LATV is a pretty good one there, where we actually got rid of all explosive weapons, and at the same time we added the AA because we saw that people were using those to, like the 30 millimeter and the 50 millimeter, to fight the gunships and the planes and such. So it felt right that they should have a flak gun to like counter air, and also since we don't want to just remove stuff, we added some other guns to them as well that are like less explosive.
Okay, so I think a big problem we saw that we wanted to address as well was overall explosion spam, and especially then for the transport vehicles. They are supposed to be able to transport players across the map and not necessarily blow shit up everywhere, to put it that way.
Yeah.
Am I correct in saying it that way?
Yeah, you want to like ultimately I think Jim's right. Like you're going to pick the vehicle that you have a fun experience in. But when we have things like transport vehicles, we need to make sure that they're being effective at that. So that's really the thing that we're hoping to address with this. It's like if you pick an anti-air, it's going to be effective against anti-air.
Okay.
We're trying to pull out the ability of other vehicles to be as good as. They can still be effective against air, but there needs to be something that stands out. Just makes it easier for everybody.
So the result of that is, as Jim already mentioned just now, I think for all vehicles, we're changing their loadout. So removing weapons, but also adding weapons. And I think we are adding more weapons than we're removing because we don't want to take away the fun of those vehicles. Is that correct, Jim?
Yeah, I'm not a mathematician, but I think you get more choices now, actually, than you had before.
So more choice, but a clearer purpose for what you want to use that vehicle for.
Yeah, but you're not going to be able to, pick an LATV with a 50 mil because there are no tanks. So you're going to have to use the LATV more as a transport.
Yeah, which is what it's intended for.
Yeah.
And a pretty fun transport. I love driving across the map with that thing. So, yeah. Cool. So that is quite a big undertaking as well because, the team has been working on this quite a while to review all the vehicles. What was their original intended role? Like what weapons do we need to add? What do we need to remove? Can you give us, I guess for both of you, like the most fun example that's coming out of this, or the biggest change we made for a specific vehicle? We already mentioned the LATV, so maybe it is the LATV, but if you have any other examples.
When you put it like that, I think the Wildcat with the new AA gun is awesome. It might be too awesome. So we're going to have to look at that, I think, maybe.
And did we also make any changes to the Bolte?
Yeah. Yeah, it's got some toys. It's got the incendiary launcher. But we've removed the incendiary mine layer. So that's gone. I think it's got the detection pulse. I think we gave it 50 mil, but removed the 30.
Yeah, because the 30 is more spammable.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing with the Bolte is the glass, I think. So you're safe from snipers, since it's in the where is it? Heavy transport.
Yeah.
So did we also change categories around again for vehicles?
No, it's been in heavy transports for a while now.
I think so.
Yeah, it's just that it's not a good choice, and it doesn't feel like a heavy transport because you can get sniped out of it at any time.
Yeah, cool. And I think another cool thing to confirm then is that we are indeed adding thermals for vehicles. So do you want to share with players what to expect there?
Yeah, that's for the gunner seats. So all gunner seats that had machine guns will have a thermal version of the same gun that has less zoom but thermal view instead. So you get sort of a side grade choice there.
Awesome. Because I know players wanted thermals on tanks as well. Sorry, not on tanks, on vehicles. So that's coming during Season 5 as well.
Yeah, they get it on tanks as well, but not driver at this point.
Okay.
Only the gunners.
Not yet.
Not yet. But yeah, that is great news. So excited we can confirm that today. And then, is there anything else you want to add about the loadout rework?
I think we'll see how it goes. I think it'll affect how we view vehicles in the future as well.
Yeah.
Like how we qualify balance will be defined by like how effective is this thing at the role, and then that will, I think, affect the kind of metrics that we use to work out balance. And then the other thing is just community feedback, like play it, tell us what isn't working, and we'll maybe fix it if Jim lets me.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. It plays nice in our playtests. So
yeah, we've done a lot of testing on this, and like we as a team feel that it's in a much better spot now than it was before. So excited to get into the players' hands, and for those of you listening, let us know your feedback as well once it's available with the Season 5 update. So we'll provide more details on Season 5 later this month. Then we have Jets as well. I believe recently we opened up some feedback topics to the community and asked them how they felt about Jet gameplay. And we've got a whole lot of comments. So Jim, we are making some changes to Jets. Can you talk us through those?
Yeah. So the main feedback on Jets was they feel floaty. And that's kind of hard to work with as a handling designer there. But I have done a lot of changes to the actual camera of the Jet, because the handling of vehicles is like 50% the camera. And the 3P camera was actually pretty floaty. So
when you say floaty, so in the third person camera, it just didn't feel as smooth as we wanted it to? Or?
No, this is exactly why it's hard to act on feedback like it's floaty.
Get the diagrams out.
It's different for everyone. But for me, floaty is your input isn't directly attached to the camera view. So,
okay, gotcha.
So you move the plane and then the camera follows, like after a while. So a lot of tweaking there to make the camera more responsive to the Jet as it turns. So
to summarize, then you use the word responsive. So flying a Jet, based on the changes we made to the camera, feels more responsive now.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, that's awesome.
That's confirmed by our pilots here at DICE. And also the rear view control has been added back again.
Meaning, like if you fly, you can.
Yeah, you can look back and steer the plane at the same time.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And then lastly, I think we're also adding rocket pods. So that's part of the vehicle loadout rework. So Jets are getting rocket pods as well.
Yeah, you get the choice there. Instead of lock-on missiles, you can have rocket pods to wreak havoc.
If you so choose.
Yeah.
And I think the feedback we had there from players was, if there's nothing to lock on to in the air, then sometimes the Jet maybe didn't feel as useful as it could be. So now we're giving you a choice. If it's more helpful to wreak havoc with a rocket pod, then you do now have that option.
Yeah. If you don't have any to dogfight, you can still have something to do.
Yeah, which is a lot of feedback we heard from the pilot community. So glad that we can make those changes happen. So I think that is a good overview of some of the changes that you can expect for the vehicle loadout rework. So as we mentioned earlier, we're very excited to get this into your hands as a team and see how you feel. Like we feel we feel, I'm saying feel a lot, we feel that it plays much better than before.
Yeah.
I think overall balance should also be better. And I think something we didn't necessarily touch on in the beginning of the podcast, but this should also impact your gameplay as a soldier, because we mentioned explosion spam, and it was sometimes a very unforgiving experience for a soldier. So this vehicle Loadout Rework, where we mostly removed a bunch of explosive weapons, should make that soldier experience better as well.
And I think it just adds more variety as well. Like, so if you think about the LATV, if it's driving around and it's spamming explosions everywhere, that's the experience that you're going to get from it, and that's the experience that you're then going to get from many other things. So pulling those out, you're going to get a different experience now when you come up against a LATV, and that's maybe going to change how you as a soldier or as another vehicle want to engage with it. So I think, this is why we do these things, because it's going to just change the perception of like the things that you generally find on the battlefield. Now they're going to be different.
Yep.
So that's the goal.
So now that we have a good overview of what we're doing with the vehicle Loadout Rework, let's take some examples. And Ross, can we start with you for the Bolt and what we're changing there?
Yeah, so we've moved some things around. So the first big thing is that we're trying to get the slots more defined. So attack and defend, those are your choices now. We've removed some things, so the 30mm is gone, because again it was super spammy on explosions, and it was just generally obnoxious, particularly for soldiers to deal with. So then we've added some things. So we've added the incendiary launcher, 50mm, and then we've moved over the detection pulse. So the loadout's going to give you different options. It's going to feel different, and hopefully it'll feel more like a harasser than where it fits now. But the big thing is going into the glass issue. So the problem we have is you shoot the driver out of the glass, and it just doesn't feel like it's a heavy vehicle.
Yep.
And I think that's leading to the currently pretty low selection rate. So now there's no more shooting drivers through the glass. They'll be protected, and hopefully that will make it feel again more able to kind of cope with the selection against tanks. So we'll see how that goes. But it's definitely going to make the vehicle feel like a more viable option. And again, like less obnoxious for soldier players.
Okay, thank you. That's a great overview. And Jim, can we then go back to the LATV? We already mentioned it a few times today, but so we have a good overview of the Bolt. Can we do the same for the LATV?
For LATV, it's about making it a transport that you can counter. Like, so all the explosive weapons are gone. We added the AA to that, since we saw that players like to use those 50 mils against the gunships when they can, like to have it's like a last resort to combat the gunship. So it's nice to have it a dedicated AA that won't harass ground troops.
I still don't know how comfortable I would feel in a LATV if there's a stealth heli flying my way, but like at least it has a fighting chance now.
Yeah. You don't have to have perfect aim now.
Okay, great.
To fight back.
Yep. But otherwise, it's like as is it still a transport vehicle? You mentioned it harasses soldiers less than before. It's more to move around, and you have a better chance against air vehicles.
Yeah, you're going to need a direct line of sight now. So that's a good thing with this. You can't just shoot people behind corners. Yeah,
which was, from my personal opinion, quite annoying if you're hiding behind a container and you still got caught by the explosive fire there. Great. So that is an overview of two examples of the vehicle Loadout Rework for the Bolte and the LATV. So we're doing a pass like this for all vehicles. So we won't cover them all today, but once this is in your hands in Season 5, we're looking forward to your feedback, seeing how that plays out. So stay in touch with us. From our testing internally, we feel it's in a much better spot, better balanced, plays better. Great. Then Another thing I want to touch upon with you is that we added stationary anti-air support on the map for Season 5, which is something players may have already seen in some of our portal maps. But we also wanted to try that out for the new map, which we haven't done before, because we feel sometimes soldiers might need some help if there's, for example, not enough engineers around to take vehicles down, to give them additional support to take out those air vehicles. Can you talk a little bit more about this?
Yeah, I think so community feedback around air can be somewhat polarizing, right? Yeah. And that can be tricky when you're running around, if you're not an engineer or if you haven't brought anti-air with you as an engineer. What do? Okay, so you need to go in and find a vehicle. That can be a tricky thing. Maybe you'll call it in, but maybe someone else is already in it, or maybe the selection is not available to you. So having something on the map that you can actually say, you know what, I'm actually going to go there and I'm going to go and deal with this. And it's always there when it's not destroyed, obviously. Yeah. It just gives you I think a different option. So I think we'll see how everyone responds to it. And then, it's there. It can be dropped into other levels as we see fit.
Yep.
And it should give us some interesting tactical options when you're on the ground as a soldier.
Yeah, so something new we're trying out, and if we feel the need to add that to more maps because we feel this is something players need, then we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that is all we have today for vehicles in Season 5. So we wanted to give you a preview of some of the quality of life changes coming in Season 5. But before we end, I think we want... I see Jim staring at the cookies already. Do we want to eat a cookie before we end today?
I'm not going to say no. I tell you that. Who made these cookies?
The supermarket. I didn't have time.
No sponsored links here.
No
please.
Sponsored links here. I didn't have time to bake my own cookies, but this is okay. Jim, since you're Swedish, please correct me if I'm wrong. Salt cola snittar. Did I say that correct?
No, not even close.
So what are these called?
Can I see the box? Saltkolasnittar. That's the...
Okay. I think the running joke is here that I try to pronounce cookies in the Swedish way and I always feel horribly. But please have one.
Thank you.
Jim, are you familiar with these cookies? Because I am not, but can you tell us the lore of the cookie?
No, I don't think these are... They don't have a long history, at least not in Sweden. How would you translate it to salt fudge?
That is salty.
Yeah.
That is very salty.
It does indeed have salt in its name, and it's pretty salty. With a little bit of, is it fudge, caramel?
I'm not sure what this is. It's tricky. I'm from England, so...
You like biscuits?
Exactly. My despair at Swedish biscuits and cookies in general is beyond words. This is...
But this isn't Swedish.
You pass the blame on to someone else. Is it Danish?
We don't put salt in cookies.
We don't do that around here. I like it, but it's not one of my favorite cookies I've had on the show so far. I feel this is... I'm not a big fan of salt in cookies. Do they always add salt in cookies? Now I actually don't know. This could change how I view life.
No, I think I've seen a recent surge in adding salt to things where it shouldn't be.
You could do that in theme park. Do you remember the original theme park? You could increase the amount of salt on the food, and that would make them want to drink, so they'd spend more money on drinks.
Oh yeah,
but it could make them really sick. So if we eat enough,
there was I think you can add ice to the drinks as well. So it would take it out, and you make double the money.
Yeah,
that's some big thinking there. Yep. But yeah, overall, it is I've never gone wrong with cookies in my life, I think.
I think you can't beat the British, the hobnob or the digestive. Am I allowed to say hobnob? Is that a...
I have no idea what it even is.
Thing. You
Is
can
it,
beat me if it's...
vinegar?
Oh, no, not vinegar. But yeah, so that was it for today. We had some nice cookies as well. So folks, get in touch with us through #InsideBattlefield on socials or at podcast@battlefield.com if you have questions, feedback, or just want to say hello. And then from all of us here at our Battlefield studios, stay classy and PTFO. That's it for today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.